Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Divi Nation. Divi Nation is a podcast and video show by Elegant Themes, the creators of Divi, the ultimate WordPress theme and visual page builder. The goal of Divi Nation is really simple. We want to provide you with the knowledge, insights, and supportive community that you need to be successful with WordPress and Divi. I'm your host, Nathan B. Weller, and as your host, it is my job to facilitate that success by having various guests from the Divi and wider WordPress community onto the show to share their stories and experiences with you. In this episode, I interview Mitch Skolnik. Mitch is our operations director here at Elegant Themes. What does that mean? Well, at the end of the day, he's the guy who makes sure things run smoothly here, and he oversees sales, support, and a lot of, if not most of, the administrative tasks associated with growing a company like ours. So during the course of our discussion, we get into all kinds of potentially helpful topics, tips, and tools that anyone growing a business will want to know about. And since I know that there's a ton of you out there in the Divi Nation doing just that, you're not going to want to miss this interview. Here it is. Mitch, welcome to Divi Nation.
Hey, Nathan, it's great to be here.
It's good to have you. It's been, you've been a long time request from the community. I think every couple months, if not more often, somebody's like, when's Mitch going to be on the podcast? Particularly after coming out to the WordCamps and stuff and people getting to meet you in person.
It's a lot of pressure. Hopefully I'll be able to live up to the hype.
I didn't mean it to be pressure, but I think people just like to get to know the staff, and they know that you're, one of the core people in the company. And I think, it means a lot to the community to get to know those who are behind the scenes, kind of making some of the big decisions or just making what they do possible, which I think is really cool.
Definitely. Yeah. It's one of the best things about our community is how close-knit everyone is and how transparent things are, like what you do with the blog. I think it really makes our customers feel like they're along for the ride with where Divi's going, with where our products are going. So it's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, it's a close-knit community. This morning I spent, right before this podcast, I was like, I'll see who's on Facebook from the community, and I tend to message people or just comment on stuff. And it was someone's personal post that caught my attention, so I just started messaging. And it was, we were just talking about, their kids' tantrums and how funny, stuff. We were just talking about family, which is a theme that keeps coming up at our WordCamps, is we feel like family, and by extension, it feels easy to drop in on people's conversations and be a part of that because it is such a close-knit community. It's pretty special.
Yeah, I think it's become a big family in a way with these past two WordCamps. I think one of the big highlights, which is so funny to me, is me and Nick playing ping pong together, just having out a battle and seeing who comes out on top.
It's become a duel of the ping pong titans every year now. So next, we should have I've been watching a lot of UFC lately. I don't know why, but every once in a while I go on these huge kicks. And one of the things I think is cool about these big matches is they have what's called a training camp for months before a big fight. And we're going to have to set the same type of thing up for your guys' next ping pong match. We'll have a 3-month training camp for each of you where you study film of each other's ping pong techniques, go over all the Facebook photos of your last game and see if you can't come up with a strategy to beat each other. It'll be great. We'll put it on HBO or something. Yeah. So anyway, what have you been up to lately?
Well, lately, the leadership team at ET has been working on hiring as many people as possible. So that's one of the biggest issues we've had growing as a company, scaling our team, hiring not only in support, but sales and our dev team, for designers, for every position you can imagine. This last round, we're just finishing up, and it's been great. I think we've hired 8 new people. So we're around 50 people or so. I don't know the numbers right now as of today, but it's a lot for a small company.
We're getting closer to 60, I think. If it's because I remember we were broadcasting we're at 50, and that was at the end of the year roundup posts that we did on the blog. So if we've hired 8+ people, we're knocking on 60, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I think we're finally coming into our own with our onboarding. With how we work on processes, particularly with interviewing and hiring and determining what makes a good remote worker, how they fit into each team, and then just having better structure. I think that's the hardest thing, especially for a company starting out, is really knowing when do you implement a structure? Like, what's the right time to do this, and how important is it, or should you just focus on your product, kind of a thing?
Yeah. So for you, what does that structure mean? Like, when you say we've had to implement a structure, what exactly do you mean by that?
Specifically to our hiring process, we use a hiring tool called Jazz, which is like a platform where all of our applications come in, and that's really changed the way we've been able to like actually to get through applications quicker. You can actually, without just going through like 10 emails of applications, you can actually go through like 100 applications with a platform like Jazz. And I think any platform will work well, but we finally implemented it into our workflow. And specifically for this round, we've gotten great candidates. And then
that's awesome.
Also knowing how to interview them, knowing when to hand them off, and looking for certain things that make somebody a good candidate for a remote lifestyle. I think that took us some time to learn.
Yeah.
That way we get them running on the right foot, and we understand that they're going to be happy as long as we meet certain criteria.
Very good. I want to revisit this stuff. Typically what we do is we get some background on you as a person, and then we dive into something specific. So I don't want to jump the gun too much, but those are all things that I think are going to be really valuable. We have so many people in the community who are building these distributed companies. Usually it starts as like a couple freelancers collaborating, then they get comfortable with each other, then they, decide to either team up, or independently they're like, oh, I could, instead of teaming up with this person, I could just hire someone else and start scaling this thing. And so I think you would have a ton of insight into the nuts and bolts of what makes that process actually work. And so we're going to get into that. And for anybody who's not met Mitch before, he is the operations director here at Elegant Themes. And so he's kind of like the guy who makes everything, like applies grease across the big machine, and he makes sure that everything runs smoothly. Is that a fair characterization of?
Yeah. Or you could just say I walk around the office and drink coffee all day and just point at people.
You got what you need. Digitally pointing though, because mostly distributed.
My role has changed through the years.
Let's start there. Let's talk about that story. Like, can you talk about how you came on board and what you first came on board as, and then we can kind of walk through the progression of your changes.
Are always fun. I'll try to keep it short. I've always been in computers, and I've always been building my own computers since I was a kid. Mainly just for like doing remedial tasks or just like playing video games, the kind of thing that just got me passionate about computers. Ended up studying computer science, and actually got my first job at a internet service provider. And it's one based in California in my hometown. And that kind of set the groundwork for kind of what I wanted to do. I really had an interest, not necessarily in computer science, but more in computer networking. And I went a Cisco path for a couple of years. And for anyone who doesn't know, Cisco, I think they still have around 70% of the market for like routers.
Oh, routers.
For networking. Yeah. So all the backbone of the internet,
the infrastructure,
co-location centers, all the infrastructure is run by these computers that route all kinds of packets. And I was super nerdy about that, and did computer networking, eventually moved to San Francisco. And it was right about the same time that Nick was moving to San Francisco. And me and Nick actually grew up together. So I've known him for a long time.
Nice.
And we kind of were doing our own things. He was starting his company in college, and I was consulting in San Francisco, mainly for like small, medium-sized businesses, specifically with networking. And it was going good. And all of a sudden, I think it was when Nick changed his pricing from $19.95 to $39.
Right, because that was a big sales jump. For whatever reason, it was like took off at that point.
And I remember him telling me that he was worried about it, and he doubled the price, and then doubled the sales, I think, if I can remember accordingly. So it was really nuts. And he was telling me about it. He was like, yeah, it's crazy. Like we're going nuts. Like the graph is going off the chart right now. and I'm just like, wow, that's amazing. And it kind of definitely piqued my interest, because I'm like, oh, this is really cool. People really want this.
Yeah.
And I think it wasn't until I actually looked at one of those websites. I don't remember the name of it, but it's like where you can see stats of new web pages being created on the internet, and how many millions and millions of pages are getting created.
Oh, right. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Just live, where you see the numbers like increasing. And I remember looking at that one day and thinking how much of that was WordPress. And I think WordPress was around 15% back then. Mm-hmm. This was 6 years ago. And going, God, this is something that's really going to happen. Like I had a real gut feeling where like, this is going to go to a place that could be very exciting. And I wanted to make that jump. So the opportunity came up, and it was 2011 when I joined ET, and I haven't looked back since. So
what did you join?
About 6 years.
What was that conversation? Was that you going, hey, maybe I'd like to work with you? Or was that Nick going, hey, I need someone to assist in these areas, and that seems like your strength?
It's hard to remember exactly how it went, because it's been so long. It basically, things were getting so crazy for Nick, because he was a two-man show.
Yeah, it was him and Yuri, right?
It was him and Yuri for a long time. He had some contractors and some people that were helping with support, but for the most part, they were doing everything. And Nick was still developing a lot. He was still like answering tickets, emails, crazy, right? Like,
that's so much work.
It's a lot of work. So, and then I had been talking to him about what I was doing at work, and we just came to a conversation, and it kind of made sense for me to at least give it a try and see what this whole WordPress world is about. I had really no knowledge of WordPress. I was familiar with web design, HTML, CSS, but at the end of the day, I had to learn a lot for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, so it seems like the transition, at least from before to now, is that you just kind of brought your penchant for systematic thinking to the job. Was that the role that you started in with ET, as sort of like a manager, or what did you do right off the bat?
Well, there really was almost no one to manage off the bat. So, it was a systematic role, and I was answering emails. I was doing all kinds of like just normal tasks in a company, and getting the feel for how things run. And I think it was the first week. I do remember this, the first week, and seeing Nick communicate with everyone on instant messenger, and going like, this needs to change. And then answering emails, and if anyone remembers like using like a really old school webmails, like in cPanel, like a squirrel mail, where it, like if you saw a screenshot, you would literally laugh. It takes a page load. Are you still on squirrel mail?
I'm on the legacy thing. Yeah, that's why it takes me like 20 minutes to get an email to my Elegant Themes email.
So we were answering all our, not support, but like all our accounts, billing, sales, like everything was going through this ancient webmail system. It was nuts. It was like a total like spaghetti monster of things.
So what was your, so it sounds like, as time went on, as needs were arose that you recognized, your job was to kind of bring order to the chaos and provide that structure that we talked about earlier. You were our first community manager, correct?
Yeah. So it was just kind of a title I took on because of the work I was doing, and it made a lot of sense at the time as we were growing. In a way, I was overseeing support as well. And a lot of my day was making sure we understood what was coming in, and implementing our systems, and also scaling the team as well. I was doing that for a while, even before I started doing operations stuff. So I was mainly doing that. And then the cool aspect for me has been to see the company grow and see our hires grow. And I think I'm like the second or third like kind of hire in the company. So to be able to like sit here and talk to you and like, we just hired 8 people is like mind blowing to me.
Yeah. Can you talk about that process? Like maybe we can go back to what we were starting to dip into there at the beginning, which is just like the hiring process and how that's evolved over time. Like what was it when you had to make your first couple hires? And then what has it kind of evolved into now with these new systems and structures in place?
I think before it was similar to how Nick hired Yuri, which was like over a tweet, like, "Hey, can you help me in support?"
I still love that's how that happened. It's like, "Hey, stranger across the world through Twitter."
We have a little bit more structure than that now. So hiring for support originally was pretty tough. We definitely had somewhat of a high turnover in the beginning. I think we've been lucky though. We've had some support people as long as I've been with the company. Mm-hmm. So I think hiring is tough, but also keeping support people happy is even tougher because, and we can even talk about that, what it means for like tech burnout and
let's do.
Keeping a support team running and happy is important, especially in a remote team. Constant communication is important from a managerial perspective. Effective communication it's super important. Mainly using Slack kind of changed the way we worked. Yeah. We used to be on HipChat. Mm-hmm. It worked okay. But I think since we moved to Slack, it really allowed us to make it a place where people could just talk about things. Yeah. And that has like done wonders. Not only that, but also creating a leadership within the support team. So to give you a little bit more structure, right now we have 27 people in support, which is a lot of people, right? Let's see, 8 of those people we consider support leads. So they're sort of our tier 2 of support. And separating that has actually done wonders for us because we've been able to empower the leads to work on harder issues and have things travel up the pipe that way. It's also allowed new hires that come on onboarding a lot easier because they can learn from these support leads as well. Yeah.
And when it comes to the support, keeping people happy, I mean, what kind of stuff have you, because this is something that I actually got into a good conversation with with Pippin of Pippin's Plugins when he was on the show, talking about how, seriously they take support as a company and the challenge he's had over the years of like, keeping good people in those positions. Cause it's like, we talked about how, a good support person is also a good junior developer somewhere, and that junior developer can very easily become, just a developer and kind of move up that path. Whereas in support, you're kind of like, it's like a 1-tier thing, or it seems like it can be. So you've already talked about how you created a team lead within support. Is there any other element to keeping those people satisfied, challenged, engaged, and all remote? I mean, what are some of the things that play into keeping that team happy and motivated?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one thing we've started doing is team meetings, which is helping a lot. We have team meetings every week with leads. Really, a good manager and a good person who's overseeing support you have to have a pulse on everyone. You have to know what's hard for them. You have to know who to check on, and you have to ask them because everyone has different needs. Sometimes you'll have some support people that they don't really need to talk to you about anything, really. They like doing their job. They're happy with what they're doing, and it's great. And we have some people like that too, that they're empathetic people. They're problem solvers. They get to live around the world. They know what it's like to have this remote lifestyle, and they love their job. On the other side, sometimes we have people that have aspirations to maybe do something different. Maybe support isn't the right thing for them right now, and they want to be a developer. In that case, we have that conversation. We don't shy away from it and kind of make it taboo. That's like the worst thing you can do make something taboo. As in, if you get a message, let's say you get a message from a support person, they're like, "Hey, could we talk about some career building or something?" And then that's really the important interaction you have to sort of focus on to make sure it ends up positive. And
absolutely.
And it's important because maybe there isn't a place for them right now. And that's okay. It's really not your fault if there's nowhere for that person to kind of fit into. But if there is a place and there is a structure in place on where they could go, then you can sort of pursue that. And we had that happen actually with one of our developers, actually two of our developers. Slava originally was in our support team. He's been a developer since you've been on, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He made the transition super well, and he's been doing a great job as a developer. And more recently, Dustin is one of our Rockstar support guys who turned into one of our Rockstar developer guys. So that's awesome. That's being able to see that has been amazing.
That's ironically, that's also how I even joined the team. I was a freelancer, and I messaged Nick and was like, I'm kind of burnt out on just pumping out articles day in and day out. I need to do something different. And I was like, so I think I'm going to go do this other thing. I just want to give you a heads up that I'm probably not going to be available for writing. And he was like, that's too bad. What can we do about that? And so that started a conversation that was like, what would you like to do? And I was like, well, I could probably still hang out in this world if I were doing something more multimedia, like a podcast. And he's like, that's an interesting idea. Let's talk. And and then the rest is history. And that's just cool to see that mentality is permeating the whole company in all different positions. So
that's fantastic to hear. I remember having that conversation with Nick, and that he was excited to find a person like you that could take on the responsibility of managing the blog, because he was doing that all himself. Basically.
I know. And I don't know how he was, to be honest.
Right.
That's a lot. Well, that's kind of like what you said. It was like when you saw all the work that he was doing when you joined. I think one thing this is probably the topic of a different podcast, but there is something incredible to be said for capacity, like certain individuals' capacity to do things. And he's one of those people. And this is not just two guys talking about their boss, because we don't really have that kind of a culture. But like, it's impressive. We have a couple people in the company who are like that. I know which developer was it Slava? Someone you said just incredible capacity for like sitting down and just doing tons of work all at once. Like I can't remember if it was him or someone else.
Slava was known to knock out a ton of support tickets. We have another support guy, Karen, that he works an incredible amount, especially on tickets.
It's just cool to see that, and it's like, when you get into when it becomes your wheelhouse of understanding what makes companies work and what makes community in a large sense and groups of people work well together, knowing that you're going to have a grab bag of people with differences, like capacity, like interest, like engagement and motivation, and what you need to do to poke and prod and motivate all those people to do towards one goal. I don't know. It's kind of cool. That's what I've enjoyed, I think, the most out of stepping out of daily, just head down production and doing like some of that, but also more and more, like kind of planning and strategy and management, which has been really cool. So that's where you live like every day. Do you enjoy seeing those things take shape? And maybe we can talk about what some of those observations have been.
Yeah, that's one of the exciting parts about being in leadership in the company right now, is getting to sort of get a piece of Nick's vision and seeing where to run with that. And it's really been exciting on scaling the team specifically, and getting to focus on different products for the future. It's one of those things. I feel like I should talk about one of the core principles we have when hiring a remote worker, which I think would help people.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that always comes to mind for us is finding people that thrive on autonomy.
I was just looking at the notes to see if we could bring that up. So.
Yeah, we're really not micromanagers at all.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can attest that too. Like we want people that know what they can do and feel empowered to do it. And I know it's like one of your favorite words, right? Is like and we take that as like a real core principle when we're looking for people. And it's probably the most difficult thing to actually find out about a person, to see if they will be able to come into this remote team and own their work, and then not be afraid to talk to other people.
Yeah, I know. I mean, speaking from the content perspective, I know as we've expanded our team, that's been probably, again, a key element is that, are they autonomous? Like, can you just give them a topic and and have them come back to you with something that's complete, well thought out, and well presented? What does that look like in these other hires? You know, what does that look like for support, for sales, for other operations assistants, for designers? Like, what kind of things are you and Nick putting in place to sort of test that or draw that out? Because we have people in the community who need a wide variety of talent. They don't just need, like, you know, one thing. They need a lot of different things.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I can speak to about all of them. So specifically for support, I think the biggest buzzword for support for hiring is empathy, right? Mm-hmm. You want somebody who's empathetic. That's a given. Not everyone can learn how to be a nice person and make somebody feel good. Yeah. But everyone can learn HTML and CSS. I'm certain if somebody locks themselves in a room, they will learn it. So for support specifically, you want to focus not on the hard skills. You want to focus more on the soft skills and finding the right person that is going to be happy doing this job. That's another difficult thing. There's people who maybe they're thinking of it as a stepping stone. Mm-hmm. And I really like to avoid that kind of thinking, because, you know, you want to be happy with what you're doing day to day. Yeah. And really finding the right people for that is a challenge. If they have remote experience is good, then you know already that they've chosen that lifestyle. We're always a little weary if we're hiring anyone that doesn't have remote experience, because it's going to be more of a risk. The other really big important aspect, I think, for hiring a remote worker, specifically for support, I'd say for everyone now, is writing, being able to like actually effectively convey your thoughts in like a written way. Like, text-based communication is so important now. And I'm sure you know this, we Slack so much, and one of the ways you can do that for support is you can create like a little writing test. Yeah. And that'll knock out like a ton of candidates that just aren't going to be the right fit. And it gives them a way to showcase their skills.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, if someone can't understand your solution in the support forum, then everything else kind of goes out the window at that point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't imagine how important that is. What else makes a good remote worker, while we're on that subject?
I think
so autonomous, good communication skills.
Yeah, the communication skills are there. Also, just having it be the right time in somebody's life, honestly. I think it's important. Like, we have a bunch of people on our team that have kids and they work from home. And they understanding that working remote is a perk in itself. That the trade-off for some people, and I'm sure everyone's talked to people where they say, oh, I work remote and yeah, it's okay, I don't really like it. And we're really looking for people who are going to tell their friends, oh, I get to work remote, I get to make my own coffee in the morning. And there's good and bad aspects to it, but we're trying to find the people where it really fits with their lifestyle. Cool. And I think one of the things we do is we have a trial where they can actually start working with us for a month or so in support and even in sales. And we get a feel for it. And maybe it's not the right fit. I know Automatic does this, where they will actually trial people to actually get a feel for them, because there's certain things you don't know until you actually do them. Yeah.
So is that trial period just like the standard, hey, you're a consultant for a month or two, and then if it doesn't work out, we part ways?
Basically, we have a trial. It's like usually a 2 to 4 week trial with support and sales, and they're still getting paid for it.
Sure, of course.
But we're basically reviewing them at the end of the trial, and we're deciding whether or not we can keep them. And it's either me deciding or I'm talking to my support leads on deciding that. And we have like a whole metric system in place for rating these trials replies. And that way there's a real clear picture on like whether or not they're going to be a good fit for the company.
Yeah. Well, this is a bit of a non sequitur, but we're talking about team building in general. So when did we know as a company, when did you know that we needed a sales team?
That actually, that's an interesting question, because I don't know, we kind of found out when we found this product, which is such a good like pitch for this product called Intercom.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it, Nick had always wanted to toy around with live chat. Yeah. I think when you're in a space like ours, that's more high volume versus a high lifetime value product like a SaaS software. Whereas we make a ton of sales every day. We make a high volume of sales. Live chat, similar to like a retail or e-commerce environment, is very powerful. Getting people to purchase something and get pushed over the edge is, that stuff works. Live chat works. Yeah. So we knew it was something that would be helpful. We just didn't have the time to do it. We were, busy working on Divi, making sure Divi was awesome. So how did the live chat team come? We looked into live chats, and I came upon Intercom. They were doing some cool design stuff, and they were one of the support tools that I was auditing. And they were different because they kind of gave this human aspect to live chat. And if you've ever used our live chat on our website, what's nice about it is it's very friendly looking. There isn't anything confusing. It's not like worker A is responding to worker B and something like that, where it's very cold and you're in a queue. There's like no queue. You type a message, somebody gets to it. That type of experience is what we wanted. And once we found Intercom, that kind of fit in, and we just kind of scaled the team after that.
So basically, when you're talking about the sales team, for us anyway, it was more just a matter of giving something a shot. Like you saw a tool that you thought might help. It wasn't like one day you just realized that there was this huge missed potential. It was just, it was a test essentially that worked out really well.
Yeah, I think every business is different, but from our traffic and how many people were getting on our website, we realized we were leaving something on the table there. And the ROI for it just kind of worked out. We got lucky with hiring people. We found some great people that work on our sales team that live chat Monday through Friday. And so far, the experiment that has turned into like a big part of our company now is working out great. And it's just been a great learning experience to understand how our customers work, and getting that feedback in a live chat fashion has been really nice as well.
That's cool. And this was actually another example of how we were able to take people who were looking for something more in a different area like support and convert some of those folks into a sales staff who was extremely knowledgeable of the product and could really help people. Are any of those folks still on the team? Because I know some of them have moved on to be developers now.
Yeah, and that's actually a good thing to talk about is, starting out, how do you scale a sales team with a specific product like Divi within WordPress, and like somebody has to know so many things, right? It's not like somebody is asking you like what size shirt is something. Will
exactly.
This fit, right?
And anybody listening to this who's in this position is in the exact same position that we are. Is like they not only have to know their product, but how it works with a sort of ecosystem of products on a specific platform. So what did you guys do?
What we did is we made sure to get the new hires together with our best support people who were most knowledgeable. And we did this with a couple guys. I think we cycled through 4 different support people. And Vlad is the only one who actually enjoyed doing who enjoyed doing sales more than support. So he actually stuck in sales and is enjoying sales. So That's cool. Gave the opportunity to most of our support people that would like to try this out, and they did. Some of them liked it more than others, but while we were scaling, I was in there, Dustin was in there for a long time. Making sure we set the groundwork. We had like good written documentation, a good handbook. All the nuts and bolts were there for everyone else to succeed and learn from each other.
That's really cool. Yeah. So to jump to the next team that we're building, which is a design team. So we've talked about what it takes to build a sales team. We've talked about what it takes to build a support team. What are you guys doing on the design front to build out that team?
So that's been an ever-changing area. The design team used to be just Nick.
Yep.
And then we hired a full-time designer, which was Kenny for a while.
Yep.
And then Kenny left, and then we hired Mario. So then it was 2 people again. And then Mario left, and now Kenny is back. So now we have 2 people again. But this time around, we are growing this team, and Kenny is looking to hire 2 people to join his design team. We're at a place where we do need more design help, but at the end of the day, it might sound weird thinking like, oh, you only have 1 or 2 designers, but it isn't so weird when you think about our product Divi itself.
Yeah.
There isn't that much design involved right now. It's very much a developer heavy product.
Yeah. A lot of the design has been done, and it's like a matter of, as not a designer, I hope I'm not underselling this, but it seems like the design has been set more or less, and there are updates to it, but not overhauls to be done, which would be significantly more work intensive.
Yeah. And, there's new stuff coming. So we definitely need a full-time designer. It's something we definitely need. So, but there's other projects that can be done with that.
Yeah. Sorry. I meant that's why we've been able to survive so long with having fewer designers than people would think. But now that we have the manpower and we're getting more, and woman power, that we're going to be able to expand a lot of what we do, which for you guys in the audience means look for some new super well done Divi layout packs and resources, because that's definitely on the horizon with this new design team.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. I think everyone watching this is going to be freaking out a little bit when that stuff comes out.
Yeah, it's going to be bigger and better than anything we've been able to do so far, and really consistent, hopefully. Just the few conversations I've had about it so far seem really promising, really exciting. And that's just on the content side. That's not anything else, all the other benefits of having more designers on board. Right. Okay. Yeah. So one question I've wanted to ask you is, because I feel like it's really relevant to people in the community who are trying to grow their companies. If you were going to hire a you, what would you look for? Because that's really where a lot of these people are at. They're not building, like, everything we've talked about so far is great, but it took us how long to get to that point of where we need to like hire these big teams? Like a lot of these people are looking for that person who is going to have the wherewithal, the capacity, or the systematic thinking, whatever those skills are. And I hope you can define them more, that will help them build their company. So if you can speak to that, what would you recommend people look for if they're looking to hire somebody who can basically do your job, but for their company?
I think if you're a business owner and you're looking for somebody to kind of head that out, it's number one thing, you have to really like the person and get along with them super well. You have to have honest conversations and productive conversations. That's number one. But also having somebody with some type of background, doing some type of systematic work or scaling something. My background was from networking and IT work, so it was really easy for me to like think about systems and scale them in terms of like ticketing systems, email systems, or like sales systems. All that stuff just kind of came naturally because I'm just prone to kind of computer work in general. Like I like, that's one of my passions, is like following technology and what's like latest and greatest. Other than that, like somebody who's really passionate about what you're doing, like the product in general, that they actually are in it with the same goal in mind, and they understand where you're going with it and what you need to accomplish. I think like those are really the big aspects.
And at what stage trying to think of how to word this, what's the best way to foster that growth? I mean, like, do you just give that person free reign? I mean, how do you and Nick collaborate on the company growth and vision? What is that dynamic like? Because yes, we're not micromanaging, but when you're making decisions at that level, they're going to have massive impact. So it seems like you would have to have a very fluid rapport.
Yeah, that, there's no magic sauce for that. That comes with time.
Yeah.
That is a combination of time and trust. The trust comes from knowing that the person has the confidence in themselves to do these tasks, and whether or not the outcome is going to be perfect, but trusting that person to actually get that job done. And it really, like, that's the toughest part, I think. And that's basically why it's harder to find people to lead teams in a way, because not everyone wants to do it either.
Sure.
So there's that. Yeah.
I think we've covered a lot of ground. We've covered sales, we've covered support, we've covered design. We haven't covered content, mostly because I'm on here every week and people hear me talk about content all the time.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you've done as part of your job that has been really impactful in the company is finding the right tools to facilitate our collaboration across countries, across teams, across any obstacle. Maybe we could kind of close with having you make some product recommendations on collaborative tools that people might want to, if not adopt, at least take a look at, and ones that you've found to be really beneficial for allowing us to do the kind of work that we do. Yeah.
It's always good to have product recommendations. I mean, 6 years ago when I started, there were only so many products.
Yeah.
The tech space was kind of starting out. Zendesk was the biggest one. We still use Zendesk. I still recommend it because they're a great company and they've done well with ticketing systems. But one caveat with this is these are the products we use for our company. Your company might be really different. So you do need to make sure you look at everything out there. And my advice would be whatever product you choose, you can probably make it work for you, but be sure you know that product inside and out. Make sure you know every little option in there, because sometimes those options could be real game changing when it comes to how you deal with a customer experience or minimizing your time. It's been a time saver to really know the ins and outs of like how everything works. So I'd say like our number one tool right now is like that I would recommend is Slack. I think most people are using Slack anyway. It's by far the best tool for a remote team to communicate. One thing for time tracking, which I think would be relevant to people, is when you are hiring people and paying them hourly, tracking their time is a pain. If you're using something like Upwork, they have their own kind of time tracking. It doesn't work that well from my experience. We've been with a great company for a couple of years called Hubstaff, and they offer some great tools with time tracking. Their uptime is great too. We haven't had any like issues because I think our last time tracker we used would go down every week or two, and when that's down, then people can't really work in a way.
They can't work, or they can't get credit for their work, or it becomes hazy as to what you owe people, and just a pain.
It's a real pain. And then other than that, we also use a tool called Nice Reply, which allows us to measure our customer feedback. And the nice thing about Nice Reply is it's open API. So if you want to get in there with APIs, which I would definitely recommend, you could either do it yourself if you're a developer, or you could use something like Zapier, which allows you to create triggers and connect APIs. It's probably the easiest way to explain it.
Yeah.
So Nice Reply allows you to send a little feedback form to your customers, whether it be in your own members area or in an email, and then keep that all in one place. And that's, really that's cool. Actually, it's worked out really well for us. Another thing for like kind of speed and performance, we're definitely like speed junkies here when it comes to like replying and response times. Text expander is one of those things. If you can get people on,
yes,
it's really, really useful. We have a couple guys that they really live by it. Even guys in our dev team use it all the time.
That's cool. Yeah, I got into text expander a little bit when I started exploring this like new journaling app that I was really into day one. And it has support for text expander. When you have a thought or you have like a daily thing you want to do, you can hit 2 keys and all of a sudden there's like, it's out, like your whole entry is outlined and ready and applications are launched, and it's cool.
Yeah. One of the coolest parts is that in the text expander program, it has a little graph and it'll show you how much time you've saved.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
You actually see over time, like, God, I've saved 5 days of my life because I've used this one macro.
That is really sweet.
It's pretty interesting. Yeah.
And then of course we use Intercom, which we talked about for sales. And that's been a big game changer for that because of all the, well, I mean, you can speak to this, but I know from just observation, one of the coolest things with Intercom is the automated messages.
Yeah. What kind of separates Intercom from other live chat companies is its approach to treating every conversation as a potential customer. And so it sends automated messages out there, but they don't feel like a robot. Right. They are automated. Technically, it is a robot messaging you, but it doesn't feel like a robot because it has the person's face there. It's something they would say. And if you reply to it, you are going to get a human that is answering. Response, one of the funny things that we'll get is people will actually say, is this a robot? And then it's a great time for our support people to say, nope. I'm here in the flesh.
That's awesome. This is best of we've had a few articles on the blog, and it's a topic that is coming up more and more often now. It's the idea that AI is going to take everybody's jobs. And I think, yeah, sure, maybe some point down the road. But in the meantime, it's just going to make everybody feel like they have superpowers. And this is one of those examples where it's like, you're just going to shoot out a message. Somebody's going to be like, that's just the right message. Wait a second. Are you real? I'm right here doing my job.
It's going to start happening more and more frequently with all the like leaps in like machine learning and everything. Like that's like the new buzzword here is like every company's investing in that, and they want to have the exact type answer and reply to save time and automate everything. Intercom is the right amount. It's the right amount of bots, I think.
Yeah. The next question is, what's the right amount of machine learning for Divi? No, I'm just kidding. Don't want to start that conversation on Facebook. Anyway, I think we've covered a lot of good ground. We've got a lot of tools, and I'll make sure these tools are listed on the blog when the post goes live so that people can quickly check these out. Mitch, thank you so much for taking the time out of what I know is a very busy schedule to come on the podcast and share your experience with everybody.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been super fun, and I hope some of what I said was useful. But,
I'm sure a lot of it was. Yeah, it definitely was. So yeah, thank you. And we'll see you around the community.
All right. See you soon.
Well, that's it for this episode of Divi Nation. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I just want to give another big thank you to our guest, Mitch Skolnik, for coming on the show. If you have any questions about what we discussed in today's episode, please feel free to leave them in the comments section on the Elegant Themes blog, and we will be sure to respond. Thanks again for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you all around the community. And as always, I'll be back right here next week with another episode of